Right now on Tech Radio, Tech World is going nuclear.
Hi, I'm Artemis. I am a computer-generated AI voice, and you're listening to Tech Radio.
Every week online and on air with RT Radio, we bring you the latest in tech from Ireland and the world. You're welcome to episode 1040, looking back at the 7 biggest stories of the week, including Google looking for a new solution for powering data centers. The Internet Archive is going dark, and Spotify is going into our bad books. Plus, we'll take a look at the world of dark data with Phil Wilkinson in Iotics.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
I'm Dusty. Joining me as always, our editor-in-chief, Niall Kitson. I suppose let's start off with the toys. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Let's go with it.
Leading the pack, a surprise announcement this week from Apple.
Yeah, they kind of let this one slip out, didn't they?
Yeah, it was kind of like, it's not that time of year, but I think actually, I don't know whether it's a surprise or an afterthought.
So we're talking about the iPad Mini 7, by the way, which arrived without, not part of the last launch event.
No.
Just kind of slipped into my inbox as a press release the other day with all the nice sort of gubbins that you would expect from a new iPad. I mean, the iPad Mini has kind of become the redheaded stepchild of the iPad lineup because, everybody likes to talk about the Pro. Everyone likes to talk about the Air. And the Mini is just kind of there.
It always strikes me as a kind of an iPad for kids.
Yeah. I mean, we use it at home for watching stuff and reading discussion forums, and that's it.
All right. Okay. We don't use tablets for anything at home, actually.
Really?
Yeah. It's all phones because the screens on the phones are so big, and it's in your hand. But anyway, the reason that Apple have announced a brand new iPad 7 Mini is because they've put the A7 chip into it.
Yeah.
Not the M1 or the M2 or the M3, but the A7 chip. However, they've also delivered more RAM and storage. And the big news means, because that chip is in there, that it will now run the AI, Apple Intelligence.
Their own version.
Which I suppose will make it kind of a little bit more interesting, bringing it in line with everything else.
That is really interesting, the point that you make about it not running the M chip, because this, to my mind, has given the iPad 7 Mini the aura of the iPhone SE. It's like, you can't afford a high-end Apple product, but you still like them. Here you go.
I think it's very much something like that. Also, making news this week, Android 15 has arrived.
Android 15 arrived if you're a Pixel owner. The rest of the world will have to wait based on what way their manufacturer goes. I mean, every generation, there's usually something to do with the camera. This time around, it'll perform better in low light. That's fine. And apparently it won't matter what make your phone is. I know Samsung is all about what they call nightography, but the light features on Android 15, will be consistent no matter what device you're on. So that's all right. They've also got a security feature where you can cordon off certain apps. So if you don't want somebody knowing that you have X or Facebook or LinkedIn on your phone, you can do that. You can cordon it off. If you don't want somebody to know what banking app you use, you can cordon that off. That's quite nice. My favorite new feature, though, and this is probably veering into gimmick territory, but anyway, it is basically, if somebody snatches your phone and runs away with it, it automatically locks.
So it's an accelerometer that's it's used the accelerometer. Yeah.
Somebody snatches your phone, somebody runs, okay, it's already locked. That's it.
But it can be unlocked.
if you've got the right credentials.
Exactly. I keep thinking about that with the phone. Like if somebody snatches it, well, they're not going to get much off it. I'm not really too worried about them getting too much off it, right? But then I do know that if they walk into any of these phone shops that you see around town, whatever, like I'm sure they have ways and means of being able to unlock those phones and get past the password and the codes and the whatever. But I think the first thing that they're going to do is they're just going to wipe it.
Just do a factory reset and sell the phone.
Yeah. So wait and see. But there are a lot of really good features with Android. And I kind of like that about the system. Like it's going to work across all devices.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've had a look at it. I mean, what do you reckon? Will you be downloading it? Or, I mean, given the choice, would you download it?
Of course I'll download it.
Yeah.
I have to have the latest and greatest and the newest and explore everything that it does.
Well, you know what the code name for this particular version of Android is?
Go on.
I mean, they're getting pretty cringy at this stage. But Android 15's code name apparently is Vanilla Ice.
That must be a very happy man. Ice, baby. About birthday during the week. Would you believe the Kindle had a birthday during the week? How many years?
Oh my goodness. The Kindle just feels part of the landscape, really, doesn't it?
Yeah. How many years ago since it was first launched?
Oh my goodness. I say 15 years?
Ooh, good guess. 17 years.
17
so
years.
It'll be a biggie next year with 18 and whatever. You're right. It has become part of everyday life, and that's just how it is. Guess how many page reads they are. Guess how many pages are read on Kindles globally a month?
Oh God, I haven't a clue.
21 billion.
Wow.
21 billion page reads a month, and they did some announcements this week of new tech, and the most noteworthy was they are now bringing color to Kindle, so that you'll be able to see the book covers will be in color and images will be in color and stuff like that. And I heard talk of the Scribe, and I have to say, like, I mean, I love the Kindle. I always love the Kindle, right? But then I got a Scribe for my good lady wife, who's very much into writing and making notes and all that kind of stuff. But she is completely not into tech. All right, I could give her the latest, greatest, and most amazing smartphone, and all she'll use it for is for calling her map. But anyway, I got her the Kindle Scribe 2 years ago whenever it came out, and loves it. Loves it. And you know, it's really nice in our house, and you'd appreciate this, all right, because you're into technology. It's lovely to hear somebody in your own house who goes, I just downloaded an update and it's amazing.
Yeah, I know. Do you know what? The Kindle is a great example of a device that all you need it for is the most basic of functions. That is it.
I know.
It's nice. You know, a lot of the subsequent generations of Kindle are perfectly fine. At the end of the day, you're just sitting down to read a book. And if you're a reader, I guarantee you own a Kindle.
Oh.
I mean, even I own a Kindle.
Yeah. I know a lot of people who are against it. I love going into the bookstore, and I must say I still miss that kind of going into the bookstore and buying a book. I just don't do it anymore.
My best purchase, I think. Now, I'm open to correction on this, but you're not going to. was I got a secondhand first generation Kindle for €50, and it still does exactly what I want it to. That's it.
€50. They seen you coming. I wouldn't be paying that for it. She can get a new one for it. Oh, well, I was going to go.
Actually, it wasn't a first gen. It was, I can't remember which one now. But I mean, it's small, it's black, it downloads books. I'm happy.
It does what you need it to do, all right?
Yeah.
And if you're looking for a bargain in the Kindle, if you don't want the latest color and yada yada, the big Scribe or whatever, because it is big. If you're looking for a bargain, do you know what I found is you look on Amazon itself for refurbished Kindles, because essentially I think what they do is they just stick a new plastic cover on it and it's like new. And then if you have the patience, is you wait for one of their big Prime Day sales or their whichever, the Black Monday or the whatever, when they're discounted even more. And Amazon are great with their own stuff. They literally will, shred the price in order to shift loads of units. So if you want to treat yourself to a new Kindle this year and maybe splash out 30, maybe €40. Let's get into other news this week. The entire tech world is going nuclear. And I'm actually not kidding about this. Tell me about Google, because they claim to have signed a world first deal.
Yeah. Now, I thought this was fantastic until you completely undercut me with your with the other bit of research that you did.
More about that in a minute. Go on.
We have heard about microgrids for data centers for quite a while now. So this is basically the idea that, okay, data centers put an awful lot of stress on the national grid. Let's give them their own grid. Let's let them manage themselves. They can take in enough in solar power. They can figure it out with wind power, and they'll be able to be self-managing. Fantastic idea. Of course, things aren't rolling out as quickly as one might like, particularly when you look at the major players in the games, like, let's just take Google as the example, unfair on its own, seeing as we've Microsoft and AWS as well. But let's look at Google and the solution that they have they're still mulling about it, but in I think 7 years time, I think it's 2030, they're looking at this, they will be employing a series of mini nuclear reactors to power their data centers, because they are convinced that AI is going to require so much compute power that it's just going to, it is going to put pressure on grids at national levels. So let's experiment. Let's try working with, I think the company is, Kairos Power?
Okay.
Is that the name of them? And so they're a private company. They're going to work on using a small number. I think it's like 6 small reactors. So we're not looking at, Sellafield reopening or anything like that. I mean, these are small reactors. And the idea is to get them moving by 2030 and hopefully covering their entire data center estate by 2035. Of course, not in Ireland, because we are a nuclear-free country. A lot of debate as to whether that should remain the case. But I think it's a pretty good solution. I know. What's your take on it?
All of those little mini nuclear reactors. So essentially it's like a nuclear reactor, but it's, I wonder how much smaller it is. Because when they talk about mini nuclear reactors, I'm kind of thinking of something that will fit in a box, like in a 40-foot container.
Safe to say that's not going to be it.
I don't think that's going to be it. But listen, do you know what? In some ways, you're right. We don't have nuclear power in Ireland, so we don't really know about the dangers of the safety or it's not a thing here, right? So I can't say anything about that. However, they have been saying that the advantage of having these mini nuclear reactors is they can be smaller because they're only generating power specifically for the data centers, and they can be located very close to the data centers. So the actual amount of power that they have to generate is much lower. But then again, and this is going to tie into our interview, I think, a little bit later, artificial intelligence, and it's using 40 times more power and heat and all kinds of things. Is that really needed? Is kind of the question. I would kind of think it's mad. It's mad what they're doing with these data centers. I mean, we've seen Microsoft, and they have put data centers in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So, the transatlantic cables, it's like literally halfway. There's a data center there. I don't know how they're powering that, actually. I saw another thing there recently where they take the computer, they take the printed circuit board, and they're actually putting into a liquid that does not conduct electricity, but will cool the processors.
Oh, okay.
It's just bananas what's going on at the minute. But anyway, listen, as you say, Google are not the first ones they may be the first ones to actually do it, but they're not the first ones to announce it. Okay. About using mini nuclear reactors. There's been a couple of other people who have done it. Amazon also announced a plan this week, and they're going to go with 4 small nuclear reactors for powering their kind of stuff. And then Microsoft were in the news 2 weeks ago, I think, or a week ago, where they want to restart 3 Mile Island, which is a full-size nuclear power plant in Pennsylvania in the States. But the reason that they're restarting it is because it nearly melted down in an accident in 1979.
to call it an accident is a little bit, sort of glossing over what happened.
Go on.
I mean, it was at the time the world's worst nuclear accident, I believe. If you have seen the film China Syndrome,
Yes.
just go watch China Syndrome. You'll learn all about American nuclear reactors.
The China Syndrome movie, I can't remember who was in it, but it was huge at the time, and it was the story of the 3 Mile Island, but it was based in China essentially, was it?
No.
Or in Japan, was it?
No, this was Jack Lemmon and Michael Douglas and Raquel Welch.
No, it wasn't Raquel Welch.
I know, we'll look it up later. But basically the plot is something goes wrong in the control room of a nuclear power plant. And there's one engineer on site who's Jack Lemmon, who fixes it, basically, stops the whole thing from melting down. And he finds that he's surrounded by people that, as part of cost saving measures. Was it Bridget Fonda or Jane Fonda?
There you go. You got it. Yeah, I just looked it up. You're as quick as Google.
And Jack Lemmon is the guy who has saved the power plant, discovers that nobody around him really understood the plant or how it works. And he blows the whistle on conditions within the plant. And Raquel Welch and Michael Douglas sort of, they make it their job to try and find out what happened. And, between the two of them, they come up with the narrative. It is a classic film. Go watch it. And the last 10 minutes are just heartbreaking. No actual, well, I suppose there's a couple of what you might call action scenes in it, but like the high point of the film is just, we have seen this happen so many times where people who are technically gifted can't get their message across.
Very much so.
And you know what? Just see China Syndrome and you'll experience that frustration.
Watch China Syndrome, and then after it go, Microsoft want to start it up again.
Microsoft want this back.
Now, listen, speaking of movies, 2001, my favorite movie of all time. The movie after that was 2010.
Your second favorite movie.
My second favorite movie. Do you remember how 2010 finished?
Wasn't it we got 2 suns at the end?
Yes, the planet Jupiter exploded, all right? But all its moons remained. And a message was broadcast to the universe from whatever the hell turned Jupiter into a sun. And the message was, all of these worlds are yours, except Europa. Attempt no landing there. Now, what's the big story of the week?
I'm going to guess it has something to do with Europa.
We've just sent a spacecraft. Destination Europa.
It's that red button effect, isn't it? It's like whatever you do, don't press the button.
Of all the moons that you could have gone to.
Don't go to Europa.
Anyway, national mission blasted off during the week. It's called the Europa Clipper. It was launched by a Falcon X, Falcon or SpaceX Falcon Heavy. It's going to arrive in 2031. They're planning on doing kind of 49 orbits. I don't know why they're not doing 50, but anyways, that's how it is. Europa is the most interesting of all of Jupiter's moons because it's the one that's most likely to contain some form of life.
Yeah, it's basically ice, isn't it? Like
it's basically ice. There's water, and where there's water, well,
there's something.
Well, who knows? So there's been lots of books about it. But I just thought, the minute I saw that, I just thought of the movie.
Yeah.
You can have everything except Europa.
Except Europa.
Yeah, the big red button. I love that.
And even Europa Report as well. It's like, do people? Well, I suppose. Probably nobody has seen Europa Report, but for people that listen to us,
I've seen it. I've seen it.
It's great.
Yeah. I can't remember what it was about, but I remember the title all right. I saw it on a plane, and it was kind of like, it was one of those where I was like, oh, okay, I'll have a look at this. And I was like, God, that was good.
Yep.
I can't believe I found it on a plane.
Yeah.
It's a bit disappointing. Speaking of SpaceX, leads me on to Elon Musk.
Elon Musk corner.
Ta-da! Tesla event. He's big into, as well as spaceships and electric cars. Robots is his other thing. And he is hoping that in one day we will all have robots for as cheap. He literally said this, as cheap as $20,000.
Well, that's the talk of the most of the richest man on earth.
There you go. Anyways, there was a Tesla event. And at the event, they had a robot walking around, unaided, untethered. It was playing rock, paper, scissors with people. And it was very, very impressive. It was like watching that movie, I, Robot, in real life.
Directed by one Alex Proyas, if memory serves, who tweeted, "Hey, you've taken my designs," basically.
Well, he didn't write the original book that it was based on. But anyways, if you're going to start claiming the ownership thing. It turns out that this robot that was walking around unaided was actually being controlled by humans.
It was kind of aided then, really, wasn't it?
It was very aided. Yeah.
It actually reminds me of that Justin Timberlake video. Where he's meant to be this Steve Jobs kind of character, and he's doing his dancing backstage, and the robot out front is doing its dancing, and it's a terrible song. So I don't think I got to the end of the video, but I got the idea.
What do you like? Anyway, he was turning to be controlled by humans, and that kind of reminded me of an older episode of Joe Rogan. Elon Musk was on Joe Rogan. He's done a couple of appearances. But anyway, he was kind of going, you know the Samsung phones? You know this, because we mentioned that they're very, very big on nightography, is that what you said?
Yeah,
photography and stuff like that, and taking pictures of the moon. He said that basically on the Samsung phones, it's not taking a picture of the moon at all. It's using AI to enhance the shot or to completely fake the shot. All right. And this was done by, I think they were giving a demonstration where they were zooming in on the moon, and then suddenly the moon comes into focus and it looks amazing. But then somebody just darkened their room and they had a white bright circle on a phone screen or something like that, and the rest of the room was dark. And then they took a photo of it, and as they zoomed in and zoomed in and zoomed in, the camera said, oh, hang on, darkness, bright circle, must be the moon. Right. And this white circle that he was taking a picture of in the phone started showing signs of being the moon. So it was it's all a fake. It's all a fake.
Well, okay. So we got robots that aren't quite robots. They're more drones, really, if they're being controlled that way. But, they also showed off their robo-taxi. I think the end of 2025 is when Musk said they would have a fleet of these lads rolling out, and completely autonomous, sit in the front, away it goes. Basically looks like a much smaller Cybertruck without the bootiness on it.
All right.
And yeah, I don't know. I really would not feel comfortable sitting into something with no driver and no manual override.
I was talking to a taxi driver the other day because he was actually driving a Tesla. And I was kind of going, what do you think? And I was kind of wondering if he'd go, they're amazing. And he was like, yeah.
They're fine.
All right. I did ask him the question. I said, how long does it take? I say, not how long. How much does it, have you worked it out? How much it costs you to fill this car with electricity for a full charge? He goes, yep. He says €9.
€9.
And I went, wow, my car will be 60, 65.
Yeah. Okay.
So there you go. So it's paying for itself kind of quickly, but they are expensive. Yeah. But anyway, the Tesla car, we were talking about, I was saying that to him about the fact, do they do the full self-driving in Ireland yet? They're not allowed to in Ireland, so he's never tried it. And then we were talking about, well, would you do it? And he was kind of going, yeah, I suppose. He says it's like anything else in life, and this is what I'm saying about counteracting what you're saying. You do it the first time, and you're right. You kind of you make marks in your underwear that weren't there when you put them on, and then the second time is kind of like, okay, this is a bit dodgy the last time, but I suppose I'll go with it. Nothing happened. And the third time you're kind of going, yeah, I suppose it's okay. And then the fourth time it's like, yeah. And then the fifth time you're like, hurry up.
Well, one thing I will say about the Tesla taxi that is going to go against it, especially in Ireland, assuming it gets past the regulators, which of course the Cybertruck hasn't. Thank you, Europe, saving our good selves once again. The taxi uses inductive charging. So you will basically have to park it above what is effectively a MagSafe link. And then it will charge that way. So there's no actual plug. You just park it.
Wireless charging on a car.
Wireless charging on a car.
That
sounds
insane.
Fantastic. However, how exact do you have to be in lining up?
I keep saying that. If I could die and come back in 1,000 years' time, I'd love to see the changes. Don't mind you. Can you imagine somebody who was around in the year 1024 coming back now? Last story on Elon Musk this week. SpaceX is suing the state of California.
Oh, yeah, he's made another powerful enemy.
Yes, indeed. It reminds me of the case in Dublin Airport and Michael O'Leary. Michael O'Leary is the Ireland's answer to Elon Musk. in more ways than one, because of the restrictions at Dublin Airport, which is kind of like, in some ways it's ridiculous, because there's no physical reason why we can't have more flights coming in and out of the country, but they want to restrict it, and I'm sure they have good reasons for it with neighbours and noise restriction and whatever. However, I'm not going there. All I'm saying is that in California, SpaceX are having the exact same problems, right? In that they have been restricted to 35 rocket launches a year from California, and they want to do 50, and the authorities there have went, no.
Right.
They went, we want to protect wildlife, we want to protect animals, too many rocket launches, not a good thing. No.
I'm down with that.
All right. What else have we got happening in the news today? Your favourite story of the week. Actually, we've got two of your favourite stories of the week. Click to cancel.
Click to cancel. So thank you, FTC in America, the Federal Trade Commission. They have come up with a solution to a problem that we all have. How many times have we subscribed to something, kind of forgotten that we've subscribed, or,
stand up Zoom.
Stand up Zoom. Yeah. Stand up everything. I mean, Adobe in particular got into trouble.
No, hang on. Yeah, Adobe, Zoom. There was another one. I can't remember. Some of them do it, all right, but a lot of them actually are quite good and will email you like a month in advance and say you're due for renewal. Make sure your card is up to date, or a reminder, or upgrade, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But Zoom in particular, nothing.
Yeah.
Not a word. The first thing you see is when it's on your credit card bill.
Yeah, for your comfort and convenience. So you don't have, the FTC had said, no, whenever something is up for renewal, you have to explicitly consent that you want to renew it.
Brilliant.
Fantastic idea. Yeah. Very happy with that, because in America, we know they are famous for very poor customer service and having to spend ages getting through to somebody. So you can finally say, please take me off your service, to which they may say, in the case of Adobe, you've got a termination fee to manage there.
It's just annoying. But what can you do? If you're leaving them, it's the end of the relationship, so they can just go, we don't care, pay a termination fee.
They'd be like, I cheated on you anyway. Take that. It'll cost you a tenner.
I think it's a great thing. And actually, do you know what? With any luck, the EU will jump on that then as well and bring it in here as well. Yeah. But I think it's a great idea. Just give me 30 days notice to say we're cancelling, whatever, off you go. Quick word of warning if you use the Internet Archive. And actually, I've had need to use it 2 or 3 times, because I'm looking at websites that we did 20 years ago. And I was kind of, what did we used to have on that? So to get the layout and trying to remember. And then there was 1 or 2 things where 1 or 2 websites went missing, or something went dreadfully wrong, and we hadn't done a backup or whatever. So we were able to go to the Internet Archive and able to look up a load of stuff there. These are all small websites with 5-6 pages. They're not that important. But the Internet Archive is fantastic. For those who don't know about it, essentially what it does is every couple of days or every couple of weeks, it will make a copy of all of the websites on Earth. So if you want to have a look, and when you want to see what the RT website looked like in 1998, off you go. You can look it up. However, somebody has managed to hack the Internet Archive, and you kind of think, why would anyone want to do that? It's almost like a public service. It's not commercial. They're not charging people or anything for it. But they did. They hacked, and there was a big message on the front page going, a denial of service attack has taken down the Internet Archive, and 31 million of you will have your details added to the, what's it called? Have I Been Pawned website. So basically what they've done is they've hacked all of the email and the passwords and more information from Internet Archive, and God knows what they're doing with it.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? A little bit of trivia. the Internet Archive, or Wayback Machine, was founded by a couple investing their lottery winnings. Isn't that kind of weird?
Yeah, I have conflicting emotions about that.
It's kind of weird, but it's kind of lovely as well, you know?
Last story this week then, Spotify. You're a big Spotify user. I like your music and you like listening to albums from bands nobody has ever heard of.
Guilty. But in this event, there are some bands that I have heard of and very much enjoy their music. And here's what has happened. We know Spotify is open to gaming. We have had people shoot to the top of, the charts in Spotify for no reason whatsoever. Yeah. People you've never heard of. Right? Yeah, exactly. They're gaming the system. They've got a bot farm in Russia doing their work for them, or something weird like that. So during the last few weeks, a number of bands started seeing junk albums appear in their catalogs, right? And it was just like, what we haven't done this. We haven't made this album. So a band called Gong went public with this on Ars Technica earlier this week. And basically they were about to go on tour and somebody had a look at their page. They were going to play and there was a new album there and it was awful. It was, AI generated everything from a record label with no online presence whatsoever. So the thinking is, because this affected lots of other bands as well, was that if you were a band with a one-word name, right? This was an algorithm that clearly went out and just generated one-word name bands, right? And ascribed AI-generated music to them, uploaded it under the guise of being signed to this fake label. And, it enters the algorithm, they get plays, whatever. The people behind it are very happy.
Yeah, so they're basically scraping some money out of the Spotify subscription fees.
Unfortunately, some of the words they used actually corresponded to actual bands. And that's how they ended up having their back catalogs basically polluted. One of these bands was Swans, who I really like, who I listen to. Dusty is shaking his head going, what?
Who?
You do not mess with them. They are angry, angry people.
But they're beautiful.
Yes, like swans. Ask anyone who knows swans. They
stop talking about swans. Get on with the story.
Okay. We're a different sort. Right. So basically, you have an awful lot of junk material that is up there on Spotify, to which people have been reporting these junk albums to Spotify, and they're not the quickest at taking stuff down, apparently. In some ways, their customer service is bang on the money. When it comes to taking down fraudulent content, not so much. Now, it's not the first time we've seen this kind of thing happen. I mean, Amazon is plagued with what they have, what they call low quality content. It's just stuff that's been copy pasted from Wikipedia, had another page slapped on it, called it a cover and uploaded it. Absolute drudge. And it looks like this is the Spotify equivalent of it. So quick bucks quick pennies for the dodgy parties involved.
Yeah.
God knows how many bands are actually out there that are being impersonated.
Yeah, but I mean, you've shown the fallacy of the entire story, because everything we hear about Spotify and artists and musicians who are trying to make a living off it, all they say is there's no money in Spotify.
Yeah.
If you're on the long tail on Spotify, that's it, you're done.
So here's the thing. This is why you've got these fake record labels. They're the people that will be accumulating the pennies and cents and all that kind of thing. And how many people are behind the fake labels?
All right. Yeah. I suppose if you do anything on a large enough scale, you're going to make money out of it.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So it's interesting. Well, listen, I wish you a bon weekend and enjoy listening to the new Swans album. I believe it's very, very good. Niall Kitson, thanks for keeping us up to date with all the news this week.
This is Tech Radio from TechCentral.ie. Get every episode of Tech Radio by clicking follow on your podcast player right now.
We know data centers are incredibly resource intensive, but have you ever wondered how much of what is being stored or being used or being artificially intelligenced is useful? For example, it's like your hard drive on your computer at home. Have you ever thought, how have I used up all of that space on the computer? What's there? If you've thought that, welcome to the world of dark data. Information that is gathered on your system over time that has absolutely no discernible use or value. During the week, Niall Kitson had a chat with Phil Wilkinson about this. He is the head of product engineering at Iotics and found out a ton.
Phil, you introduced me to the concept of dark data, and I suppose one thinks of it as being, sort of a material that is really seedy in nature, the kind of thing you don't want your parents knowing you've been gathering over the years. But that's not too far from the truth. I mean, when you look at your hard drive and it looks pretty much full, and you start thinking, what's it full of? Do I really want to know? That's kind of what dark data is.
That's exactly it. It is that frustration when you open up the hard drive, you're trying to find a useful file. You can never find it. It's just full of junk. And the challenge isn't just limited to you and me. It's a challenge that we see all across industry and enterprise as well. And it's not a small challenge. Roughly 35% of all data that's possessed within enterprise could be classified as dark, meaning nobody knows it's there. Nobody knows what it is. Nobody understands how it's useful. It essentially contains no value and just represents risk to the business.
That's an interesting commodity when you think about it. I mean, for years we've been told that data is the new oil, and suddenly it turns out that maybe that's not the case.
It is a really big challenge for the industry. Organizations have been told for years that data is the new oil, and therefore people are terrified of giving it away. They're terrified of losing it. They're terrified of the wrong people having access to it. They believe that at some stage in the future, it may possess some value. And so there's this tendency just to continue to store and store and store. And inevitably over time, people forget it's there. They forget why they captured it. Most of it's not tagged. So even if someone goes looking for data that might be useful, they can't discover it because there's no easy way to find the data that's been captured. So it really is a challenge for almost all organizations today. And it's a huge, huge cost, 35% of that data being dark. And when you look at the amount of money that organizations are spending on things like data centers, I think that one estimate that I saw recently was that it's 10% of any standard organization's IT spend, typically on data storage and data processing. And when you think about how much of that is just for processing data that's dark and unknown, it's incredible.
It is quite a human thing, I suppose, to want to hang on to as much stuff as we generate, because you never know, it might be useful at some stage down the line. So we do have tremendous enthusiasm for, data reservoirs and data lakes, and, just the assumption that at some stage in the future, what we have no use for today will actually be a valuable commodity tomorrow. It's really I suppose, toxic mindset to be sort of encouraging in an organization.
And it's a misnomer. There's another statistic out there that roughly 60% of data is never accessed. So it's not just that it doesn't produce value, but it's never actually read. So it is a huge statistic. And I mean, the answer is to be better at governing that information. So when better processes around when we capture information, making sure that we're tagging it, we're giving it some metadata that describes what it is, why we've captured it, what its intended purpose was, and almost most importantly of all, who owns it, who's responsible for this data over time. So there's ways to get around it. There's ways to make that data valuable, but it does require a little bit of governance and good practice.
Of course, when we talk about governance, you're looking internally, sort of in companies, for a chief data officer, the organizations that are lucky enough to have employed one. But there's also the issue of GDPR as well. Has GDPR succeeded from the perspective of getting people to be more aware of what they're looking after or what their data estate is? Or has it gotten people sort of more worried about the effects of non-compliance than actually digging into sort of the fine details and going, oh, actually, we've got an entire tier of stuff over here that, we don't know what it is, let alone to be able to make an argument for whether we should have it or not?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. Individuals and organizations have become aware of their rights around data and consent. And so it's forcing organizations to take that more seriously. On the enterprise side, any organization that's trying to sell to enterprise or trying to set up enterprise deals typically have to answer information security questionnaires. They have to convince buyers, procurement officers that they're going to manage any data that they might receive about that organization or about their individuals in a secure manner. So it really is in every organization's interest now to be thinking about the purpose of GDPR, the spirit behind the regulation, to make sure that we are processing and handling information related to individuals that's sensitive in an appropriate way. I've just been through the ISO 27001 process with Iotics, and so this is very fresh in my mind. Having to go through the I guess the pain of looking at every data set. Why do we have it? It's a really good practice. It helps you understand what you have, why you have it, why you're spending money on maintaining it and storing it, as well as then protecting the subjects behind that data. So I think GDPR is having an effect. There's definitely question marks over how it's enforced and the effectiveness of those processes. But I think it is having the intended effect.
And in looking at dark data, has it made you look at sort of the media that we're using as well? Because I know an awful lot of stuff is still on magnetic tape in vaults somewhere. So is it a case of, okay, look, what is down there, and was it ever useful in the first place?
Yeah, I think that's people are asking that question in a serious way about anything that might be sensitive or personal information. I think there's a long way further to go for data that drives our applications, drive our communications, and I would say that's the majority of the data certainly within enterprise and industry would fall into that category. So we're a long way behind the curve when it comes to the majority of the data within our organizations.
Of course, when we're talking to data, it does all build up to AI, because AI is consuming data, and we're assuming that data is created with sort of some sort of standards applied. But the more we discuss data on the show, the more we discover that that's not the case. Of course, organizations are looking towards AI applications. How confident are they? Have you found that, yes, we've got this stuff, all we need to do is plug it into an application and it will unlock the secrets of our market and make us incredibly profitable? Is there sort of that faith that, the future is resting within the vaults of a particular company? Is there that much unfounded confidence out there?
I think there's more hope than confidence, if I'm honest. The greatest challenge in my opinion, that we face with AI is providing the needed access to trusted, proprietary, accurate, real-time information, but doing so in a way which protects the rights and the sovereignty of the owners of that data. And that's a challenge that over the last year that Iotics has really started to lean into. We believe that what's known as the data privacy paradox needs to be solved. The paradox is where organizations and individuals want to benefit from AI and the magic that it provides, but not at the cost of their personal privacy. And yet the paradox is that they do. They give their data away. We just tick that box to say that we consent to terms and conditions without really reading it. And so despite not wanting to give away our privacy and sovereignty, we do. And so over the last year or two, Iotics has started to look and lean into this challenge that the industry needs solved. AI is not going to reach the potential that it has if we can't enable AI builders to access information that is going to solve the biggest problems that we have in the world. Think about climate change and social mobility. No organization can solve those challenges on their own. And so we need organizations to be safely, securely, in a trusted manner with consent, exchanging data, exchanging compute and algorithms in order to solve these big problems. And we need to find a way to do that that's safe. And so we've been leaning into that challenge and really excited about where the industry is capable of going. But as I said, it's not there yet. The big model builders have essentially hoovered up all the public information on the web, and will now be looking for ways to get access to the here and now information, the information about individuals, about what's happening within organizations, so that they can prove more value. The adoption of AI within enterprise has not been fast enough for the investment community. They want to see more value, but that's not going to happen if the models and the model builders aren't able to link their offerings to the most valuable information that we have, which is the information that you and I hold and that's held within enterprises.
Yeah, and you raised the issue of consent there and how freely we give it away if there's a nice shiny product or service at the end of it. I think smart speakers being a particularly good example of that. In looking at where sort of data is being managed from a consent perspective, where do you see the LLM developers going here? Is this going to be a case of, okay, you asked OpenAI a question, are you happy to contribute to the model's development going forward for free? Just let us know what questions you're asking.
I think we have to be careful about the boxes that we're checking. I think we have to be very careful about the boxes that we're checking, both as individuals and as organizations, from this point on, because what we're consenting to with our data is becoming more and more relevant and carrying more and more implications.
And of course, when we're looking at LLMs, we're looking at things that came specifically from the past, but also we're looking at hallucinations as well. Do you think that if organizations are putting, their data or bad data into their individual models, that not only will the results they get be, possibly gibberish, but ultimately very damaging as well?
Absolutely. If we are going to be either building or fine-tuning models of proprietary information, then we better be sure that proprietary information is accurate and trusted. That's a key challenge for any builder of LLM models. A common approach that we're seeing in the industry right now is around redocumented generation or RAG, which is the ability to, before you pass a query or a task to an LLM, you first of all enable that LLM with ground truth or facts about a situation. So you're not asking the LLM to do stuff that it's not optimized for, which is often find me a specific piece of truth or fact about a certain situation or about a certain asset. And having first obtained that knowledge, then use the LLM for what it's good at, which is kind of generalized knowledge or understanding a human question or translating the answer into a human readable format. So there's all sorts of ways in which there's also an opportunity for organizations with all of this data. LLMs can help identify what data you didn't know about. So one of the things that we're looking at is, can we enable in these decentralized ecosystems organizations to discover data that is valuable to them and is available to them, but they actually didn't know about. And so there's a real opportunity here to use AI to help identify within this dark data, what data might actually be valuable. We're excited about how Iotics can help solve that problem for our customers.
And that was Niall Kitson chatting with Phil Wilkinson, Head of Product and Engineering at Iotics.
This is Tech Radio.
That's it for our show this week. Do check out some of the other stories that we have online for you, including...
Yeah, we're taking a look at why girls are still turning away from careers in STEM. We have a report on how well Irish companies are doing in the space economy. And we explain quantum computing by friend of the show, Cara O'Carroll.
All of those stories and more for you online at techcentral.ie. We're back again next Friday with a brand new show online and with RT Radio 1 Extra. And do remember to share our podcast with a friend. Just tell them to look up Tech Radio Ireland on Apple, Spotify or YouTube. Until next time, from myself, Dusty Rhodes, and from Niall Kitson, have a great weekend.
Tech Radio is produced by dustpod.io. From me, Artemis, goodbye.